Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also announced that the India-US trade will reach no less than $60 billion and will also create no less than 50,000 jobs. Listening.
जहां तक ट्रेड का सवाल है, मुझे खुशी है कि मैं जब परसों ह्यूस्टन में था तो हमारे पेट्रोनेट ने वहां पर $2.5 बिलियन के इन्वेस्टमेंट के साथ एनर्जी सेक्टर में इन्वेस्टमेंट का एमओयू किया है और उसका परिणाम ये होगा कि आने वाले कुछ दशक में करीब $60 बिलियन का ट्रेड और करीब 50,000 लोगों के लिए जॉब। तो अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा इनिशिएटिव भारत ने लिया है। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप मेरे तो मित्र है ही है, लेकिन भारत के बहुत एक अच्छे मित्र के रूप में आज भारत और अमेरिका बहुत तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का फिर से एक बार धन्यवाद करता हूं।
And also shortly after the bilateral concluded, PMO India tweeted a picture of Prime Minister Modi and Trump posing with a framed photograph of the two leaders together from the Howdy Modi event that took place in Houston. Now, the picture was in fact handed over to Narendra Modi as a present by Donald Trump. Now, notably ahead of the bilateral meeting, as Trump offered to mediate between India and Pakistan to resolve the Jammu and Kashmir issue, he said that it would be great if Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Khan can actually work something out together to resolve what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. Meanwhile, on Pakistani terrorism, Trump said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had given a loud and clear message in his address to the Indian Americans in Houston.
I really believe that these two great gentlemen will get together and work something. I also, you mentioned Pakistan, but Iran would have to be at the top of the list because if you look at terrorist states, that's been the number one for a long time. But I really believe that Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Khan, they get along, they will get along when they get to know each other, and I think a lot of good things will come from that meeting. Well, I mean, the message is not for me to give, it's for Prime Minister Modi to give, and I think he gave that loud and clear on the other day when we were together. He gave a pretty loud message, and I'm sure he'll be able to handle that situation.
And also a little while back, WION's executive editor Palki Sharma Upadhyay and also Siddhant Sibil and Anas Malik spoke to us in terms of what is happening in New York at the UNGA.
Was pretty much several issues when it comes to Government of India says that it has come with a much wider agenda from climate change to Gandhi. It is the India-Pakistan rivalry that dominates the discourse in the press, and WION is the only network that has two correspondents dedicatedly following the two governments. With me are both my colleagues, Anas Malik, WION's Islamabad Bureau Chief, and Siddhant Sibil, who's our diplomatic correspondent in Delhi. And you've both been tracking the two prime ministers and their meetings and engagements. So yesterday there was a meeting between Imran Khan and Donald Trump, and today a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. Let's start with you, Anas. What is it that according to you, was the highlight? How did the Pakistani press see the success or otherwise of that meeting?
Well, the Pakistani press tried to rake up the Kashmir issue, and they tried their level best to extract a statement on Kashmir, whereas President Trump was more insistent that he would rather be playing a role of an arbitrator only if the Indian side is ready. And he continuously focused on that. There were statements that were thrown at him that there are alleged human rights violations, quote unquote, and he purposely chose not to respond to that. In fact, he rather ignored it because he said that, in fact, there came a point where he taunted the Pakistani Prime Minister as well, that are these journalists part of your team or part of your negotiating team? There were questions hurled at him on part of the Afghan peace process as well. I asked him particularly in context of terrorism and what, since he had a day before shared the same stage in Houston with PM Modi. So he diverted that question. In fact, he evaded that question and diverted it towards Iran. But if you talk about the body language, President Trump sounded very confident. Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, I was there 2 months ago at the White House as well. At that time, he was very confident, but yesterday, Pakistani Prime Minister looked a bit tense. He was trying to evade questions. There were only 3 questions that were taken from the Pakistani Prime Minister himself, and about 12 times the US President mentioned that Pakistani Prime Minister is a great leader, but he would only mediate or try to arbitrate if the Indian side is ready. Yes, Swati.
Right, and President Trump's relationship with the media is well known. So he essentially called the press gathering there the B team of the government of Pakistan in a way. And we saw some very interesting exchanges today. Ironically and interestingly, calling Narendra Modi the father of India and the Elvis of India. How was this seen?
Well, today the focus was on what happened in Houston, extension of what happened in Houston, and today the focus was on terrorism and on trade. Both sides have now started trade talks. The Indian Trade Minister is here in New York to talk with his counterpart. So we do expect some kind of trade deal to be announced. Perhaps there is no timeline which the Foreign Secretary has announced, but perhaps in a few months' time. But terror, of course, being the topmost priority. A lot of questions from the Indian side on the issue of terrorism, to which the President of the United States responded that your Prime Minister, the Indian Prime Minister, has sent a strong, clear, loud message to Islamabad on that issue.
So would you say advantage Modi or advantage Imran Khan after this engagement, this session?
Well, objectively speaking, it looked, and it is...
Advantage Trump.
Well, it is advantage Trump, but it is... If you look in the subcontinental dimension, it is clearly advantage Modi, because he has been able to present himself as the Elvis, as a rock star. From Houston to New York, there were positive vibes, positive exchanges. Like Anas said, that there was taunts in that room where he was present along with the leaders. In the room where I was present along with the Indian Prime Minister and the US President, there were no taunts, but usage of phrases and endorsement of each other, with the Prime Minister of India saying that Trump is my friend.
Right.
Well, there's something really interesting to add. Pakistani Prime Minister, while addressing a press conference right now, he said that President Trump has asked him to mediate between US and Iran. And in yesterday's meeting, President Trump had conveyed him a message which he has conveyed to President Rouhani. The Pakistani Prime Minister is addressing a press conference right now. Yesterday, when I asked him this question in context of terrorism, he had diverted it that Iran, quote unquote, that Iran is the hub of terrorism. That's what US President had said. So very interesting that during that meeting with US President Donald Trump and Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, which focus would have been Pakistan-India, now it has entirely shifted towards Iran and the US sanctions. Yes,
but would you say, Anas, that the Pakistani government and leadership has come with one agenda at the United Nations General Assembly, and that is to rake up Kashmir, and they're not getting the traction that they might have hoped?
Absolutely. This is what the agenda was. We saw the Pakistani Foreign Ministry's press release as well before coming to the United Nations. They said that they would be raising the issue of Kashmir, or rather raking the issue of Kashmir. But as we speak, even after 14 or 15 engagements over here since the past 2 days, and the Pakistani Foreign Minister making over 30 plus calls, the Pakistani Prime Minister making after 18 plus calls, there hasn't been much traction except for the fact that Turkey and Malaysia has sided with Pakistan. If you talk about other countries, including France, which the Pakistani Prime Minister just mentioned, including the US, nobody has openly come out and supported Pakistan's stance. So clearly it is a setback for Pakistan on the part of diplomacy. I take you back slightly in time, the Human Rights Council, the Pakistani side tried to bring a joint statement, cross-regional joint statement, but then again it failed to bring a resolution contrary to what the Pakistani Foreign Minister had said. So clearly there is some point that the Pakistani side is lacking behind, and that is the reason that it's lacking traction within the international community, because the international community is clearly not convinced with Pakistan's stance on Kashmir issue, and that's why it sides with India. Yes,
right. And in terms of optics, big win for India and Narendra Modi, from Houston to New York, to the fact that Donald Trump came to listen to Prime Minister Modi on climate change, which was very, very interesting and noted by everybody. But in terms of tangibles, would you say, Siddhant, that as far as India and US are concerned, progress still needs to be made? We don't have any key takeaway to take back in a way.
Well, I think one of the key takeaway is trade, because they have finally decided to sit down and talk. They are talking here in New York. They have started the conversations, the Indian and the American side. So on trade front, one of the only contentious issue I believe both sides are working on. On terror, we know that there are convergences by both sides, by the US President and by the Indian Prime Minister. But if you look at the larger context, because this visit is just not about India-US ties, it's also about presenting India as a global leader, as a country which can provide solutions to various global problems. So India is just not focusing at a one topic, just like Pakistan is doing Mission Kashmir is the mission they have. But India has other missions, including climate change, which is topping the entire priority. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister is launching the solar park, which is situated on the roof of the United Nations, where WION had the opportunity to go and shoot. So clearly the message from India, optics from India, is very positive, and a message that India can help the world when it comes to finding solutions to challenges.
Right. Somebody said that the watchword on India-US relationship is trade, and the US-Pakistan relationship is aid, and that one sentence should signify the difference. I'm quite wary of reducing this to an India-Pakistan thing, because the United Nations is a platform for very many issues of global significance. But as far as India and Pakistan's engagement with the US is concerned, this is what we've got.